It's my distinct pleasure to introduce Dan Egan and Teresa Smith, the program directors at St. Luke's Roosevelt and downstate, Kings County. And it's a real pleasure because we were trained together, Teresa and I, and Dan is somebody I've looked up to as well. So I think that it's hopefully, you'll get something out of some pearls. And they have recently taken over programs and really high-powered programs. So I think that it's a special challenge, and I think that, I'm pleased to have you here. So thank you.
Thank you. So talking with my sheet, so if, anything goes wrong, just blame them. So my name is Teresa Smith. I am the program director at SUNY Downstate, Kings County in Brooklyn, New York. This is my partner here.
Dan Egan, program director at Untitled Chapter, New York as well.
So our talk today is looking at the transition from APD to PD. So our learning objectives, Dan's going to go over some things you could be working on now if you're an APD, and then he's going to talk about his experience as a new program director. I'm going to do the Ask the Experts session, and then I'll also talk about some things that I learned as a new program director.
So I think all of us in this specialty are acutely aware of the pain of the rental specialist. So from every other service in the hospital, apparently has perfect rental specialist. And then with the email. So I'm going to do the retrospective scope of being an APD and some things that I sort of wish I had done or wish I had been told potentially when I was in that role. So only a couple of those. The first thing is that what I have learned in this job as program director is that so much of what we do is not just about the mechanics of running a program, filling out forms, but there's this whole other human resource thing. There's a lot of leadership pieces that go into it. And what I realized when someone told me that I should read some books on leadership was that there are all sorts of leadership styles, that there was a lot of self-reflection necessary for me on what kind of leader am I, at least that's what the books tell me, and what kind of people do I want to surround myself with on my leadership team that may help balance my leadership style. And I actually learned a lot about these different things because it's not as intuitive as it seems when suddenly you're thrown into the driver's seat and you have to create a vision and take a program on a journey. So these are just a couple books that were sort of thrown around in names, but worth taking some time to read up on leadership. The other thing that I didn't really pay as much attention to is the mechanics of how a residency program works. There are a huge number of players in the job, in the production. I mean, it really is a production. So on the resident level, what does your program or the place you might think about going do with chief residents, with resident director roles, with junior residents? Is there leadership opportunities there? What happens with a coordinator? Maybe it's coordinator and you also have a senior manager, or maybe you have an education director. Maybe you have a vice chair of education or a vice chair of academic affairs. And then institutionally, there's a G&E office, and there are a number of people there that directly impact your program. And if you don't really understand how all those people intertwine with each other, and then you arrive on day one as program director, it's a little bit overwhelming. You can get a little bit lost in trying to figure out who's the person I'm supposed to email with that question. Remediation is unfortunately, or fortunately, likely, a big part of your job. So people have challenges with patient care. People have professionalism issues. People have mental knowledge issues. And this is actually a skill, and it needs to be done well, and it needs to be done according to all the rules. So I would recommend, if you're in the APD role, to actually spend some time with your program director talking about remediation, being involved in setting up some of the remediation sessions, going to semi-annual reviews where some of these issues start to develop and you start hearing about problems and faculty evaluations that may identify people. And I'll just, since I wear another hat in the remediation task force, just plug our little wiki, which has a whole lot of information for you about remediation. You can spend some time reading about all different ways to remediate. So this came out a couple weeks ago from my institution. This is Sadia up on the top right there. But there are a huge number of people that are involved in the G&E process of running an institution. And this is different if you're at an independent site or if you're at a medical school on site. There are so many people that go into running institutional program kind of leadership that it's important to understand who they all are and who's your go-to for finance issues, who's your go-to if you've got an academic problem that you need to remediate or put someone on probation, who do you go to for just like a question about a program letter of affiliation. There are all these different people, and so in the APD, especially if you're going to stay where you are, kind of starting to learn and identify who those people are earlier is helpful. So then I became program director last July, so July 2015. And it definitely was an interesting year. And I learned some things. So I'm going to share some of those things. So my first year, I'm sorry, this one of my residents was utter hell. But it was a challenging year. So I, shortly thereafter, my chair was stepped down. The name of the hospital changed one day that nobody told us, and we just woke up and there was a new sign outside. My APD personal life sort of was thrown up on people. So lots and lots of things happened. And so people just couldn't believe how many things were happening. And I could very clearly sense that people were starting to not trust, particularly the residents. And so what I learned very early on was that they needed to not think that I was being squirrely and squirrels, hiding nuts and all these other things. And they needed to believe that I was telling them the truth and that I was sharing with them information as I found out and that I wasn't withholding things from them. And so as much as possible in the times, I think they need to sense that you're on their side and that you're sharing the, what's going on to the degree that we're allowed. The other thing that I've learned incredible to me time and time again is that there are always two sides to a story. And you have to withhold that courage to send the really angry email, or in this generation of the learned better to use texting, before you've heard the other side. And so I can't tell you how often something that is a problem turns out to be a really complicated issue in a personal life. And when they come into the office after they've gotten that, hey, stop by email, the tears are flowing, and you're actually like, wow, there's a lot going on right now, and you can help them through that process. Or even as recently as a couple weeks ago, there was an issue, and I had to, come by the office and email, and it was I thought it was very clear what had happened, and from the information given by the chiefs, I was all ready to be all angry and disciplined and all that, and then I heard the other side of the story, and I was like, your story is actually believable. And learning actually is feeling about it. So take the moment, don't send the email right away, pause, hit the other side. This is a challenge because I think in EMs we want to be everybody's friend. We're a very friendly specialty. We often use first names, we work with teams, we get very close with our residents. And there is a very fine line between boss and friend. And if that's blurred at all to the residents, it does create a little bit of a hump. And so you have to make active choices about potentially not going to all the social events that they want you to go to, of not necessarily drinking if you drink with them outside of maybe formal residency events. Because when you have the person in the office who's crying about how, I know this must be really hard for you to, like, oh, your boyfriend. I'm like, no, I'm not actually. I'm your boss, and I'm your disciplinarian. But they need to understand that. So obviously I want them to love me, and I love them, but I also need to wear the boss hat. Speaking of friends, it's important to make friends here within this organization, to make networking relationships, to be able to pick up the phone and call someone and say, hey, I've got this problem. Have you ever dealt with this before? What would you do if you were in my situation? And I can't tell you how valuable that is. And so using this organization to really form those relationships, because you'll be blown away by the things that cross your table, and sometimes I literally just don't know what to do. So not only friends within Cord, but also within the institution. So one of the first things I did when I became program director was went and met with every program director in the institution, so that we had a casual, informal relationship from the beginning, so that when conflicts happen later, it's much easier to talk to the person if your first introduction was over coffee, just kind of getting to know each other a little bit. And if you're not sure how to make friends, actually look for that too. So you're great to add on Facebook and then, all that sort of stuff. This is really hard. This is still hard for me, of not feeling this immense sort of sense of guilt whenever something bad happens. That conversation, your resident today, it's never our resident when it's bad. It's your resident when it's something bad. But it's our resident when they're so good. Our residents are amazing, but your resident. And it's really not, it's hard to not take that personally. You've got to just let it go. Although tempting, I'm not going to sing the Frozen theme song. This did not animate correctly, but we just want to put them in the, be like, how did you do this? And you've got to learn a lesson. And you get really consumed and angry. And I think our goal is to really have this loving relationship with our residents. but what you will see is 90% of your time is not that 10% of the people who are the problem people. And recognizing that and trying to just change your frame of reference so that you remind yourself of the 90% that are not the problems and don't allow that to consume all your time and your thoughts and your laying and your emails will help you get through the day. Delegate. I'm really bad at this. All of us have similar personalities, but you've got to get people on your team to be doing things. It's our job to mentor people below us, but it's also helpful to you to not have to do all of the tasks related to running the program. And then lastly, before I turn it over to Teresa, the whole, if you were in the room right before this, it's all about work-life balance. But this is hard, and this job in today's world is a 24/7 operation where people have expectations that you're available, that they can text you and they can call you, and all that's great, but it definitely can creep into the wrong direction of this balance. And so I would just advocate that you actually proactively think about yourself, make time for yourself, and make sure that you maintain those relationships and the things that you enjoy outside of this job. Because while we love it, and that's why we do it, it can actually completely take over your life and your schedule. With that.
Thank you. So some of these themes we're going to repeat, but I did a very informal survey of some of my other program director friends. And, I asked them, if you could go back when you were switching from APD or transitioning from APD to PD, what would you tell your younger self? And so here's some advice that they gave us. Chris Doty. Doty says, two things. Be gentle with your residents. There's fear, as Dan was talking about, particularly when there's that transition. They don't know you if you're coming from the outside, so you're a stranger. Or even if you're getting promoted internally, there's that fear of change. So you have to be gentle with the residents. The other thing he says is have a clear vision for your program. Very important. So I also started in 2015, and when it was announced that I was the program director of SUNY Downstate Kings County, it was a few weeks before court. So a few weeks later, I come into court, and I got cornered by the Kings County alumni, of all things, alumni, cornered. And I felt like, a teenage boy coming to pick up my girlfriend, and the father was like interrogating me. So what are your intentions with our program? And I was like, listen, I haven't thought about it. But it's important to have clear direction of what you want your program to look like. Linda Regan, she says not only should you have a clear direction for your program, but you need to have a clear direction of what you are going to be as a leader, who you're going to be, how people are going to perceive you. When I first started, that first Wednesday conference, I came, I gave my introductions, and because there was a lot of anxiety, I wanted to kind of ease the tension of the transition from program directors. So one of the things that I told my residents is, please do not place me on a pedestal. I'm going to make mistakes. I would rather lead down in the trenches with you all so that we can learn together. But you need to really think about it, especially when you're going to be making that transition. How do you want to be perceived as a leader? The other thing she says, and Dan had mentioned, is you have to be transparent. You absolutely have to tell the residents why you're making certain decisions. Let them know what your motives are, what your intention is. We can't do what our parents used to do when, giving a response, and it's basically, why do I have to do this? Because I said so. It does not work. It doesn't work with this generation. It doesn't work with adult learners, period. Tell them why. Bill Paulo from Upstate, he said 4 things. 1, have a clear role for your APDs. It's really important to empower them, have certain things that are in the department that they're responsible for, or in the division that they're responsible for. And it also is good faculty development. You're not going to be the PD forever. There's only a couple of us here that are probably going to be PD forever. But the rest of us are not going to be the PD forever. So you need to make sure that you're training your APDs for the job. Also, it holds them accountable, right? So if they're not living up to the expectations that you guys agreed upon, you can go back to them and this is your part of the world, the residency, and this is not running smoothly. The other thing he says, which Dan said, is read a book on leadership. It doesn't have to be on medical leadership, right? Find the people that inspire you, whether it's in government or in business, but definitely read a book on leadership. He also says unplug. Really important, right? This is a going theme, even from the top before. Unplug. You cannot be accessible 24/7. My first year was pretty much hell as well. And it's mainly because I was driving myself crazy. When you're emailing on the toilet, there's a problem. Right? It's like, put down the phone. Give yourself like at least 2 minutes to go to the bathroom. We all do it. We all do it. We all do it. I don't want to touch anyone's phones, but we all do it. Alright? And the final thing he said is, being a PD is not the same thing as being a doctor. This is so important. We've trained, we've gone to medical school, we did residency, we know how to be a doctor. PD, I'm not sure anyone could prepare you for this. We're giving this talk together. You cannot be prepared for this. You know, I used to say, I am not a life coach, okay? You need a life coach. It's not me. Then I realized within 6 months of being program director, oh shit, I am a life coach. I even signed up for one of those living social things to do one of those life coach classes because I was like, I really need to learn how to be a life coach. But you can't prepare for everything that's expected of you as a PD, and it's not the same training that you already received. Jeff Manko, who was my former program director at NYU Bellevue, he said, yes, I agree with all of those fantastic ideas. But one thing you also have to remember is it's a balancing act of multiple masters. The administration, your residents, your spouse, and you really have to learn how to balance all of those things together. All right, so what did I learn in my year as a PD? Negotiations. Those first negotiations are extremely important. It's a honeymoon period between you and your department, right? So make a wish list, prioritize whatever's the most important to you, make sure you get it, whether it's your salary, your hours, make sure you get it. And then have other things on the list that you really, really would like, but maybe you could live without. But after the honeymoon period is over, trying to go back and negotiate, not likely going to win in your favor. Pick your battles, right? There are certain things that you're going to stand your ground on that are going to be so important to you, and that's good. Don't be movable on those things, whether it's with your administration, your residents, another department. There are other things that are just not worth energy. Know the difference. Really important. And that goes to the second point of the art of compromise. You need to be able to compromise with your residents, with the administration, with your spouse. I'm giving life lessons here. I told you I was a life coach. With your spouse, right? You need to be able to compromise, which means that there are certain things you're just going to have to let go. Which goes to my other slide. Let go. You can't do everything, right? Dan said it perfectly. You have to rely on your APDs, your program coordinator, and just let go. The other thing I realized, and as I said, I was kind of driving myself crazy in that first year, is that I was pulling like 16-hour days, back to back to back. I finally realized there's always tomorrow. I can do this tomorrow. Not everything needs to be done in one day. You're going to drive yourself crazy, moving that way. Build your team. If you have the ability to do it, build your team from the ground up. Most of us, we are going into a team and we're not going to just start firing all the APDs and program coordinator and starting fresh, right? Of course not. However, at least set the grounds and the standards with your team when you come in as program director. Even if you guys have been working together for 5 years, this is a fresh start for you. You have to set expectations so that they realize what your goals are and you express them what you hope their goals are in moving forward. All right, this is what our parents taught us, right? Please and thank you. It goes such a long way, right? I know, the millennials, and you don't have to beg them to do their job. We all did this job, but honestly, we all love to hear thank you. I tell my chiefs, I actually met with them this morning, and I tell them that if you're going to shit on someone's schedule, say sorry. Something you can do, right? Somebody has to work. But at least say sorry. It really will go a long way with your relationship with your residents. So, this is the kiss of death. No resident wants to hear them at all, right? First of all, don't be dismissive of the residents. Yes, they're going to come to you with complaints. Yes, they're going to come to you, with some sort of feedback about a rotation and what it should look like. Don't be dismissive. Listen, you want residents on your committee. You want residents in they're on the foreground. They really know what's going on with the program. They really know what things are working or not working. But this is the kiss of death. Well, when I was a resident, no one wants to hear that. It's a different time, all right? Finally, do not have to prove yourself to anyone. This is particularly important if you are getting internally promoted, or even if you're coming from the outside. If you're very young, taking the position as a program director, or if you're a woman. So I'll end with this, final story. So all of my predecessors are men, and I was the first woman taking the position as program director at my shop. And so it was a big deal. So I got all of these congratulatory, letters in the mail, and cards, and phone calls, and text messages. And someone even said, I will do whatever I can for you to be successful. I'll even watch your kids. And I said, oh, that's really sweet, but I don't have a kid. I don't have 2 dogs. And so she said, well, I'll walk your dogs. Like, I live near you. And it was wonderful. It was very heartwarming. However, it was a very small group. I don't even call it a group because it was like a few people. They were amazing, right? But their, words were loud in my head. And so I spent my first few months trying to appease this very, very small group of people. I was putting, all of my emotions and time into showing them that I can actually do this. Finally realized, 6 months in, this is bullshit. I don't care about these people. I'm not even in Brooklyn. Who cares? Right? It doesn't even matter what they think or what they're saying. So I realized I'm just going to put my emotion and my time into doing this job and to doing the job well. And so if I could go back and I could tell my younger self 2 years ago, less gray hair back then, that's what I would say to myself, is that you don't have to prove yourself to anyone. You got the job, so clearly you're qualified, and you should take that time and do the job well. Because if you do the job well, then they can't say anything. All right, any questions?